We interrupt your Q mains for a recap of Friday night at the Chili Bowl Midget Nationals. Welcome back, everybody. Let's jump right into it. I know a lot of you are probably watching the Alphabet Soup right now, but maybe later on you'll have time to watch this video and help out the channel a little bit. So 83 entries on Friday night for the finale as far as the prelims go for the Chili Bowl Midget Nationals. Heat race number 1 went to Ryan Timms. He had a 5th to 1st place run in that one. Heat race number 2 went to Chase McDermott, and really that was the last time we would hear from McDermott for the rest of the night. He just really didn't have the speed that we were expecting out of him. Heat race number 3, it was Andrew Felker, a 3-1 run in that one. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. also a 3-1 win in heat race number 4. Heat 5 went to Jason McDougal, who we'll talk about more later on, a 4-1 run for him. Heat race number 6, it was Gavin Miller, a 3-1 run in that heat race there. Cole Vanderheiden, how about that? Good story for him, a Rookie of the Year contender at the Chili Bowl. First to first there for him. Justin Grant, 2-1 in heat race number 8, and TJ Smith, 2-1 in heat race number 9. In the qualifiers, it was Justin Grant, 3-1. Qualifier number 2, Gavin Miller, 4-1. Qualifier number 3, Darren Pittman, 4-1. And qualifier number 4, old Tyler Edwards, 9-1 run. The farthest we've seen anybody win a heat race or a qualifier all week long. He saved the best for last, 9-1 in that final qualifier for Tyler Edwards. That was awesome to see. Now, there are plenty to talk about before we got into the feature event last night. So many different things going on. One of the main ones, and it happened right off the bat, was Santino Ferrucci making headlines for all of the wrong reasons. I saw a clip that somebody posted from, I think it was last year or the year before. He did this exact same thing in hot laps the very first year that he ever came to the Chili Bowl. He goes into turn 1 in hot laps and just ramps off the right rear of a guy that's 10 miles per hour off the pace and goes for an absolute buzzer, dude. I mean, this thing smoked the K-rail. The front end was moved over 6 inches. I thought for sure they would be done, but somehow Flea Ruzick and everybody in the Abacus Racing team were able to fix that car and get Santino Ferrucci back onto the racetrack later on for heat races, and it would not go well. Josh Most, he also was making some headlines. He looked like he was trying out for the X Games a couple times tonight. The heat race, he rode up on top of the wall, did a huge flyer, and then later on in the D main, I think, he went to go make a move 3 wide through the middle right off the start and just absolutely destroyed the car. So Josh Most, a former Group 7 hero, might not be pickable ever again after the performance that he put up here last night. In his heat race, Kyle Busch ended up going 7-2 after a heat race incident on the very first lap, but he was able to recover and go 7th to 2nd. And a lot of people were excited to see that happen for him, but the hype would not live for very long for Kyle Busch. In that same heat race, the heat race later, Ronnie Gardner, who is an interesting story on the week in and of itself, as his car owner was involved with the fires in California. He had to find a ride later in the week. He got in with RMS Racing, a very, very good opportunity for Ronnie G. And something happened to him in his heat race. He blows the front end out, finishes last place there, and he would have to go to the D main. We'll talk about more of him later on. In his heat race, Logan Seavey goes from 9th to 2nd, so a good run there. And then somehow Santino Ferrucci does make it onto the heat race, onto the track for the heat race, and then he's running 3rd or 4th on the last lap, and we don't see it on the flow cameras, but apparently he gets turned around in the last corner, and he is sitting with Dave Byro down there where the photographers are hanging out in the infield, pointed straight at the K-rail down there. So Santino's night would go from bad to worse, and I don't know how to explain it, but it goes from bad to worse to extremely worse. I will get to it here in just a moment, but Ferrucci was sitting with the photographers at the end of his heat race while Logan Seavey went 9-2. In that same heat race, Brendan Hires, he does something that I've done plenty of times on R Factor and iRacing at the Chili Bowl and just murders the turn 1 entrance right there where the car or where the push Jeeps go off the track in turn 1. Just smokes the entrance right there with the right side of the car. And that thing, you might as well take it straight to the dumpster, take the seat out, take the engine out, and leave the rest of it because it was destroyed. Also, Michael Pickens, 9-3 in his heat race, even though he did get into an incident early on in the race. It was a good recovery for the Kiwi. Daniel Robinson, he does his signature move, a flip off, FU under green flag conditions to Shannon McQueen. We saw Robinson do that to Sammy Swindell a few years ago, and he does it once again to Shannon. Unfortunately for her, not making many friends out on the racetrack during her heat race. Ronnie Gardner then begins his soup run. He goes from 6th to 1st in the D main, so he's looking good, and he would not be done there. He would continue on passing a lot of cars throughout the night. Then at one point in time, there is 3 cautions in a row for a Josh. It started out with Josh Most, who we mentioned earlier, did a high flyer, was spinning like a top right there down the front straightaway. Joshua Lewis then spun out, Joshua Shipley spun out, and then Joshua Lewis, he flipped over. So 3 yellows in a row coming out for a guy named Josh. Not a good day to be that name. Then Ronnie Gardner will go 11th to 1st in the C main, and then Ferrucci would strike again. He gets tagged by somebody, I can't remember who it was, and he does a Tommy tip over on the backstretch. While he's tipping over, Mark Chisholm tries to avoid him, turns hard left, and goes firewall deep into the K-rail and almost kills the guy that's running the infield camera for Flow Racing. It reminded me of Donald from Happy Gilmore when he goes in there with the Volkswagen Bug. He's looking behind him, jackass, and then he hits the tower and it falls over. It just reminded me of that. Mark Chisholm right there. Absolutely destroying that K-rail down there. Then we would have some drama, some major drama in qualifier number 1, and this was probably the main storyline of the night. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Logan Seavey in qualifier number 1. Seavey was not up to pace, it seemed like, in that qualifier, and then with a couple laps to go, he starts to get a little bit desperate, tries to throw a slider on Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It doesn't look like they make contact there coming off of turn 4, but Stenhouse goes over the cushion, and, almost hits the wall, whatever. Later on, he goes after the checkered, runs into the back of Logan, but when he does, he accidentally clips the left rear tire and does a little monster truck session off the side of Logan's car, and he flips over after the checkered. So that was some drama there. And then we got a couple of good sound bites from both Stenhouse and Seavey. People not happy at all with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. on Twitter, and that's how the world works these days. Also in that qualifier, Devin Camfield had to be removed from the server because he spun out 4 different times, and so had to mention that as well. And then the drama was not done yet. Qualifier number 4, Chris Andrews and Jace Park get together coming off of turn number 2 on the first lap. Jace Park tries to throw a slider, but in my opinion, it looks like Andrews is already going to crash. He's biking up, heading towards the wall, and Jace Park finishes him off. He flips over. They both go to the work area. Andrews is over there yelling at his crew guys, and they're trying to... Chris Andrews and another guy are attempting to not let them fix the car on Jace Park's machine. And then Park, I think, got back out there. I can't remember. But either way, there was some hurt feelings in qualifier number 4 as well. Meanwhile, Tyler Edwards went 9-1. So that was pretty awesome to see. He goes from maybe sneaking into the prelim feature lock-ins to starting in the second row of the main event. And then in B main number 1, Kyle Busch is racing with an anchor behind him. He goes 1-7 in that B main. Meanwhile, Ronnie Gardner misses the transfer by 2 positions after coming out of the D main. So those are the main storylines going into the feature. Now let's do a little recap of the main event. Ryan Timms, Michael Pickens on the front row. Timms would lead early on in the main event, and then Gavin Miller would get to second on like the first or so lap. But then on lap number 2, there is a yellow for Kyle Jones. He goes upside down with what looks like, from the camera angle we saw on Flow, he got some help from Ricky Stenhouse Jr., so Kyle Jones upside down. And then on the restart, Michael Pickens is running third, goes into turn number 1, gets over the infield berm, gets a little bit too much of the brake pedal there and stalls the engine, and he would have to go to the tail, which is tough because I had him picked in the pool, and that hurts really, really bad. And then with that incident, it moves Tyler Edwards up to the 3rd position for the restart. Then on the restart, McDougal goes to the 3rd spot on lap number 4. And then it wouldn't take much longer. And then Edwards would get passed again by Darren Pittman. He would go to the 4th spot on lap number 5. And then just a few moments later, Cole Vanderheiden, who we saw win that heat race earlier on, he's running in the top 10 when his engine absolutely goes kabloom, and he is up in flames, and then his race is over. On the restart, Logan Seavey goes to P5, then to P3 on lap number 7. So Logan was making quick work with Pittman and McDougal, and he got going on the outside and made some moves. Then Pittman would get by McDougal for the 4th position. Seavey is working on Miller for 2nd, and Miller is clearly struggling on the outside of the racetrack in turn 2. That was where he was making a ton of mistakes, and Logan just could not get by him early on in this race. Then McDougal, for the 19th time, passes Pittman back again on lap number 12. And then a lap later, Pittman repasses him again. So they're having a good battle right there inside the top 5. Miller is doing a great job holding off Logan Seavey at this point in time. Miller is his car. He's driving a Keith Kunz car. You know it's going to be set up good. He ran all year long with USAC. Gavin Miller knows what he's doing, and he was able to hold off Logan Seavey for a very long time in this race. And then Seavey... Yes, and Seavey actually he finally slides by Gavin Miller in turn number 1, and they go down the backstretch, and meanwhile, they're both closing in on Ryan Timms, who's up front. We forgot about him, right? But he was leading the race by a country mile, but then he starts to get, losing some pace as the traffic comes into play. Seavey slides by Miller. They're right behind Timms going into turn 3. Timms goes to the bottom out of nowhere, and Miller is setting up a slider on Seavey going into turn 3. Doesn't expect, Ryan Timms to go to the bottom. Tags him in the rear end. He spins around, and Timms' night would effectively be over. And Gavin Miller, I do not blame him at all for that. I do not think it was with intent. I think it was a complete accident. As Clinton Boyles was saying on the Flow broadcast, no fault, in my opinion at least, to Gavin Miller for that one at all. You cannot expect Ryan Timms, who had been running the top the whole race, to go to the bottom there out of nowhere. So tough break for Timms. He looked really fast, and unfortunately his night would get over pretty early on in this one. On lap number 18, he would be out of the race. On that lap 18 restart, the running order is Gavin Miller, then Logan Seavey, Darren Pittman, Jason McDougal. Tyler Courtney's up to 5th at this point in time after starting in 12th. Tyler Edwards, then Michael Facino, Justin Grant, TJ Smith from 24th to 9th at the halfway point in the race, and Andrew Felker is rounding out the top 10 on the lap 18 restart. Then Pittman and McDougal on the restart. They get together. Big drama in turn 2, and McDougal pops the belts off, gets on top of the car, and does the flip off to Darren Pittman right in front of the Rowdies. It was a sight to behold with everybody going crazy behind him. That was a really cool moment, but in my opinion, if you watch the replay, I cannot place blame on Darren Pittman. It was the longest slider of all time. I feel like McDougal had plenty of time to hit the brakes and turn underneath of him. Maybe that's just me, but I cannot put the blame on Pittman there for that one because McDougal had plenty of time, it looked like, from my vantage point, from what we saw in Flow, to make the move and get back underneath of him. But his race would be over. And then on the restart, Darren Pittman would get by Logan Seavey and take over the second and final transfer spot to the feature. Meanwhile, Gavin Miller is up front trying to run away. And then a lap later, Tyler Courtney goes by Seavey for 3rd. It looks like the night is going to be over for Logan Seavey. The speed is gone on lap 21. And then on lap number 22, Seavey goes back by both of them. Very quickly, got to the top and got the car back in the right spot. And he was able to make a lot of speed there on the outside. And then Pittman bottom, Seavey top. Yeah, so there was, right before Seavey passes Pittman, they're, nice even battle, bottom and top. The track was in good shape. 2 lanes to work with once again. 6 laps to go. Gavin Miller has a 1.1 second lead over those guys behind him. Seavey then gets back to 2nd with 5 laps to go. He reels in Miller very, very quickly. We just mentioned he had a 1 second lead and had to be, 2 laps later. Logan Seavey was already on his rear bumper, so that car came to life early on, and then later on in the feature. And then Seavey throws a slider on Gavin Miller, which a lot of people were upset about on Twitter, and I don't blame them. It was not the cleanest move from the 2-time and defending Chili Bowl champion, but Gavin Miller was at least able to keep on going, and he would end up in 2nd in this race. And then the last 3 laps, Logan Seavey was on the defense, slider line every corner, making it nearly impossible for Gavin Miller to make the pass. And Miller was still right there with him. I came across the line by like a half a car length separating those 2 cars. And then across the line, Tyler Courtney picks off Darren Pittman for the 3rd spot right at the finish line. So that is a recap of the feature. Logan Seavey would get the win. He would only lead the final couple of laps, 27 through 30. Gavin Miller led laps 18 to 26, and Ryan Timms laps 1 through 17. Tyler Courtney would finish up in 3rd after starting 12th. He will be up front in the B main tonight. And he looked back. Tyler Courtney, that was the best we've seen him in a midget in a very, very long time. So we'll see what he can do later on. Darren Pittman ends up 4th. He started 5th. He'll be in the B main along with Justin Grant, 8-5 for him. Tyler Edwards, fantastic run, might be the best run of his entire career, 6th place for him. Michael Facino, 11th to 7th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 15th to 8th. And then you got Sam Johnson down there, 13th to 9th for him. Good run for Sia. And then Andrew Felker, a 9th to 10th. And then our hard charger down there, TJ Smith, he finished 11th after starting 24th. At one point in time, he was up to 9th on the leaderboard. So TJ Smith, the Jody Rosenboom car, looked very, very good. And so hat tip to TJ Smith for that run. Real quick, before we end out the video, want to let you guys know where some of those guys that were running up front ended up in this feature event here tonight. You got to look at Michael Pickens, 16th after running in 3rd, starting in 2nd. McDougal was in the top 5. He finishes 21st on the field. Chase McDermott was just not very good here tonight, or last night. 18th place for him. Ryan Timms was 15th. So a lot of really good cars were not up front in this main event due to various issues throughout that 30-lap feature. So let me know your thoughts on what happened last night on Friday. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for your support. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow here on the Rodman Rundown to recap the finale of the Chili Bowl Midget Nationals for 2025. Thank you all so much. Talk to you again soon.